Hi, Chris Conway here, and it's my 30th anniversary since I turned professional, and my second video of talks. I just got up in the last one, just up to the point I was going to turn professional. I had, having left university, had a year out. That's where I took sitar lessons I mentioned before. I then had a job for a year as a city wildlife ranger. It was a government scheme to kind of take you off the dole, give you an extra tenner to say you're off the dole, and you did a kind of made up job, but it was city wildlife ranger of Highfields and Leicester. It was mostly educational, guided tours and nature talks and a bit of wildlife tree planting and all that, with schemes with kids and things. And that came to an end, and that, you found I couldn't really get a job in that after that scheme. But then I think I was unemployed a lot and then was doing more and more music anyway, and had started, I think, in a lot of the kind of acoustic clubs and the jazz jam session, as I mentioned before. Then a new government scheme to get you off the dole came up, called the Enterprise Allowance scheme, and that's where they gave you £10 again on top of the dole to say you run your own business, and I was running my own business as a musician. So I got some more deliberately fee-paying jobs, and my first one was a little unedifying. Do I mean that word? Anyway. It was a place called the Secret Jazz Company, and it was a kind of nightclub in the centre of town where it was kind of new, run by some kind of businessmen in Birmingham, and they employed me a couple of days a week to play jazz piano lunchtimes to accompany lunches where they were going to have diners and such. The only problem with this is they never got a chef or put on any food. So for 2 days a week I would be playing to nobody. Well, I remember it now. Me and the barman Tim, we would have to go downstairs and lug this really heavy Roland piano upstairs to where people were supposed to be, and then go down, get the amp, which I think was a monitor. I wasn't singing in those days, it was just piano. And I played to nobody, really, and then at the end of my, however long it was, a couple of hours, I would have to get Tim to help me lug the piano back down to the basement where I lived. And yeah, this went on for a while, but after a while, I think that's where I met a drummer, Dave Hunt, who was an old fella who was, I think he'd played more in trad jazz. Asked if he could drum along or some. I don't know if we started doing that in there, but I think he did. He used to bring a snare drum and brushes and play along with me. The next job I got was at the Pump and Tap pub, which was again piano job, playing in the bar once a week, and it was started out in the bar and then it moved under the railway arches. And it slowly turned into a jam session as Dave Hunt came with his, no longer with us, bless him, with his snare drum and brushes, and then slowly other people would come, and it became a weekly jam session. And I think it went on for about 7 years, and I think we recorded a little tape as well, cassette tape, the Pump Jam as we called it. And that was that was fun, and I guess I met a lot of musicians who I still work with, who came along to give it a go, and some stayed for a long time. And Dave it became his life, really. He was retired, or else retired at his time there, and it just became a very important part of his life. And he would record everything, and then he would go home, listen to the recording, ring me up the next day and tell me what were the good bits, and then I visited his house one time, and it was just stacked full of these tapes from the years we did it. Yeah, he was quite a character. And then the next job I got was at the Belmont Hotel, playing every other Saturday in the restaurant, Jerry's restaurant, and they had a baby grand. And I stayed, and actually every other week, every other Saturday, I alternated with another piano player. And in December, every other day up until Christmas, doing Christmas carols and such. And gosh, 12 years I was there, a long time, and a lot of funny things. You get to see a window in a world that that I guess you don't normally see, and a lot of funny stories from there. I remember one I often tell is about the elderly gentleman, very wealthy gentleman, used to come, and he would ask always for a tune, which again I didn't sing there. It was Stevie Wonder, I Just Called to Say I Love You. But he was pretty drunk by the time he usually asked me for his tune, and the waiter once showed me his brandy bill. I mean, it was just incredible money. But he would always ask for his song, but he would always get the title wrong. I don't know, those in the UK would remember Ray Allen and Lord Charles, the drunk puppet Lord Charles, and he was very like a comedy drunk character in a way by that time. So he would always say to me, "Oh, you will play my tune, won't you? I'm just calling you to see if you're in." And it was always different each time. "Oh, you will play my tune. I'm just calling you on the phone to see how you are." "Oh yes, sir, I'll play that." Yeah. And yes, there was also a couple who always used to come every week, same table, which was actually near the piano, and they always had the same joke with the barman, and always got me Avalaga, as I drank then. And they were there for years doing that. I kept wondering, surely one night, didn't they? One took to turn to the other and say, "Oh, let's go for a curry instead." But no, they liked their regular night at the Belmont. And that was where I really established a broad range of tunes, because it was 3 hours and about a 10-minute break in the middle. And I play by ear, so I only really learned tunes that I liked and could pick out. And I had an early exposure to songs of the 30s, Ray Noble Orchestra with Al Bowley, singer. And I found that record when I was a kid, 8 years old, 9 years old, something like that. It was a record given to my mom as a joke, "Music from Your Era, Mom," by my brother, and of course it was way before her era, as she thought of it. Never got played. I found it as a kid, and I, unbeknown to the family, learnt all these songs. And one day my folks were having a dinner party with some old friends, and I burst in with a straw hat and I sang all these songs from the 30s, and they couldn't understand how I knew them all. It was like I was channeling Al Bowley. So those tunes I had in my head, and I could work those out. Plus, I love old movies, so I comfortably, as well as other tunes from the 30s, because I like to, from the Fred Astaire movies and things. And I just picked them up by ear and added to them over time, and I learned what worked and what didn't. There was a gentleman came, I remember, who came quite often. He came with his office. I think he was a manager of, very drunk fella, nice chap. I still see him on the street. And he asked me one day, Armenian gentleman, will you play a song for me and I will sing? And I thought, oh boy. And he leaned on the bar for stability and sang, and he wanted Feelings, which was okay. Yes, not a born singer. Feelings, oh feelings, etc. And then we got to the end. Bless him, didn't last too long. But he reached in his pocket and gave me £20, which was a lot of money then. And I did say, look, because I knew he was drunk, I said, you know you've given me £20. And he said, I know what it's like for musicians. Bless the man. And oddly, he turned, when I moved to this house, needed a new front door lock, and I ran into him on the street, and he turned out to be a locksmith now, and he did the front door of the house here. Other stories, gosh, too many from there, but it was a long stretch. And eventually they redesigned the restaurant, had no room for the piano in the restaurant, moved it outside, into the neighbouring bar where nobody was, and then he slowly got rid of the piano. So after 12 years it ended, but it was a big grounding. At least I was able to play, background restaurant piano or whatever you like. Another thing I used to fit in was TV themes. That was kind of fun because it was fun seeing if anyone would recognize. I've just had another memory. So I remember a fella came up to me. His wife had left the room, and he said to me, "See that lady who's gone out? That's my wife, and it's her birthday. So when she comes back in, if you could play Happy Birthday as she walks down, that would be lovely. Thank you." And well, that's fine. But she was some time, quite a while. I couldn't just play nothing, and I drifted off into something else. And I looked up, and suddenly, to my horror, she was halfway down the room. And I don't know why, but I just suddenly couldn't think how your heartbeat's going. I've got to do this now. And Happy Birthday isn't a tune you can get wrong. If you get a note wrong, it's pretty obvious. So I just started anything and was playing. Kind of got if I goofed, I jazzed around it, and it was just about Happy Birthday. It was a bit impressionistic anyway, and I got to the end of it. It didn't sound great. And he just turned to me and went, "Thanks." And I don't know if he was being sarcastic or not. Oh dear. But aside from piano work, then other things were carrying on as well. The various groups, the Storm Thieves were starting. I had a jazz trio and worked with Jazz Orient in London. I couldn't say these were regular earners, but they were happening. And slowly, bit by bit, the work side of music came up. And I used to get other little jobs. Every year I would do a musical for a school. I would be doing a lot of the backing music, recorded and then some live. I think I started doing it for an amateur operatic society in Syston, and they just turned out to be teachers, and that was my winter bill money, was doing that then, because it was normally banto time, February, January, around there. And so that was a big thing for business-wise. And then I think, what else did I do? Yes, other things started up. I don't think they were necessarily great earners, but they were adding up to me being able to carry on professionally with lots of different streams of things coming in. Right, I think, I've probably rambled enough now. So, yes, I think from here on, I realise all my different genres and threads started at different times, and I've got different stories, so I might do it genre by genre as different things started, and try and remember things from those different music worlds. Okay, thanks for listening, and see you again soon.